Okay, so we just saw Denby Grace there talking about Mafia 2. We're going to shift into another game now, and that is Homefront, which Dan actually came away from E3. We're absolutely blown away by this game, yeah?
Yeah, this was a real surprise game for me at E3. You know, you expect the big guys to put on the best show, and for the most part they did, but this was a real kind of left field title.
Because it was quiet, wasn't it? Like, it was just announced like maybe a couple of weeks before E3, and then bam.
I think it was literally a week before E3. Essentially, it's a modern shooter. It's set in 2027. It's a Resistance style game, so I think Half-Life, so futuristic, and basically it's set around this premise that North Korea invades America, and you're part of this small band of resistance fighters.
When did North Korea get all these weapons from to take down the United States of America?
It's 2027. They're stockpiling between now and 2026.
Okay, all right.
So,
okay. I get it.
Did you actually get to play this game, or hands off? Or?
No, it's a really fresh announcement. So it was hands off, but it wasn't canned demo. It was actual playable code.
So what were your impressions of it?
Yeah, it's looking really awesome. It's visually the game is looking phenomenal. They're doing some really interesting stuff with lighting. Essentially, you wake up and you're in this house, and you wander through a building. You find it's a suburban environment that's been kind of taken over in the guerrilla kind of environment as well. So stockpile weapons. Families trying to grow things out of cans because they move around so frequently. Really great vibe.
So would you say it looks better than the original Doom?
No.
Okay, well they've got
for the time. Or
yeah. They've still got a few months to work on it to get the polished graphics.
The game is looking amazing. It looks a little bit like Resistance 2, a little bit like Killzone 2. And it's got a bit of a, if you played Frontlines Fuel of War, there's a similar sort of vibe. It's focused around the energy and financial crisis as well.
Okay, Dan, who did you get to speak to at E3 about this?
I caught up with Richard Rouse from Chaos Studios to chat Homefront, and he painted a scary picture of post-apocalyptic 2027.
I'm Richard Rouse. I'm the lead single-player designer at Chaos Studios, which is THQ's development studio in New York City, and I've been working on a game called Homefront. So Homefront is a first-person shooter, and we wanted to set it in a really unique and interesting setting, so we went with playing in America, fighting in recognizable American locations, but it's America 20 years in the future, and it's an occupied USA, so it's pretty different than what players have played before, and you'll be fighting on the side of the resistance, trying to turn the tide and really sort of recover hope for the country. That was sort of an interesting topic we wanted to cover here, is sort of oil running out and the concept of peak oil, that some would say oil production has already peaked. So in the future, it'll just keep declining and become more and more rare, which, as a resistance unit, makes it really hard to get fuel to fuel the vehicles you want. So you're constantly having to steal from the occupiers to get the equipment you need. Also, in terms of future weapons, we're glad to have it 20 years in the future, where you're able to take weapons that are in development today and sort of extrapolate where they're going to be. We didn't want to make it too science fiction either, though, so it's all stuff that looks believable. It's not giant mechs or something like that, but the thing we're showing off today is Goliath, which is a six-wheeled unmanned combat ground vehicle. It's got some cool weapon systems on it, and you're able to paint targets with it, command it around, tell it to go attack things, and use it for cover too. So it's a pretty cool tool. So with this title, we're really, I think if you see the single player, it really looks a lot different than the first game. We wanted to integrate the story more into the gameplay, really fight in those recognizable US locations, so that's why we felt it was a new property. But we also really liked the post-peak oil thing, and really wanted to apply that to the single-player gameplay as well, so that you are scrounging for resources more. We just think it makes the world interesting, and it's something that not a lot of other games are doing. So we knew a lot about it, we liked it. We're like, why not put it in this game too? So it's based on Unreal Engine 3, and on the last project, on Frontlines, we really expanded that to allow us to do large multiplayer battles and really high player count. A lot of stuff went into making that work. This time around, we knew we were focusing on single player, so we wanted some special lighting effects. So we've been working on new techniques for light mapping and sort of ambient occlusion and HDR, high dynamic rendering. It's pretty important to achieve the sort of effects that you're seeing in the demo today. We've been in development about a year. We really wanted to focus on a small chunk of the game to show people what we were trying to do. So that's what we came up with this. We're well out from shipping though, not this year for sure, but it's going to be sometime in the future. We're not yet announcing the release date. So in terms of in the single player game, you're fighting as a resistance unit, sort of using guerrilla tactics against the enemy. So it's the North Koreans that have invaded America. And obviously there's a lot of time between today and then to sort of show how that becomes plausible. And that'll be unfolding as you play the game. You'll learn more about that. So it's really interesting getting that sort of resistance versus the occupying Korean army. In multiplayer, it's going to be a bit different, actually. We're not talking specifically, but there's sort of an interesting twist to the story that makes that a little bit different in terms of factions, but we'll talk about that at a later date. You saw some of the Half-Life stuff. We like that sort of immersive environmental narrative storytelling. But we really also like Halo, we like Call of Duty, we like BioShock. So it's really taking a bunch of those games and looking at what makes sense to us and what fits into telling the best single-player story possible. So we're not trying to be any one of those necessarily, but we're trying to learn from what they've done and then put our own spin on it. All right, I'm Richard Rouse. I'm the lead single-player designer at Chaos Studios. I've been talking about our game Homefront that we've been working on for about a year. Not sure the ship date yet, but when it comes, it's going to be on Xbox, 360, PS3, and PC.